Hello and welcome to Grinding Meaning number 43, Resentment of Existence and Destruction of Potential. These are two things that I've touched on a bunch of times with on other streams, and I felt it was time to spend a little time on these two things. Also, Karl Marx, who, in sort of preparing for this stream, I'm not going to say I've had a change of heart, but I have a different appreciation for his motives, although my take will probably be unique and won't be liked by his lovers or haters. I'm doing it anyway. Let me just check my... Okay, cool. So, resentment of existence is a great term. Oh. Basically, it's perfect that it doesn't actually distinguish, like, whose existence? Is it your existence? Is it other people's existence? Is it just the existence of existence? And to give the most annoying answer possible, the answer is yes. All. And it basically happens when somebody just becomes very bitter and unhappy with the life they find themselves living. But it's typically at the core, it's themselves. They are unhappy with themselves. If you're happy with yourself, it's kind of hard to be unhappy with other things. Oh, it can happen, but it's not really how it works. In this, I guess I'll start talking about Marx. Well, there is one other thing I should make clear, and I should make it clear at the beginning of every stream. I care about what is, and care much, much less about what should be. And when people talk about things, their belief of what is very often plastic to what they think should be. In other words, they have this idea of how things should be that is paramount, and as they take in information, everybody, will favor the information that supports what they already think. So a lot of times you can, by what facts a person accepts as facts, you can often determine what they think should be. Because in politics and other things, you need to know a surprisingly few number of their positions to be able to accurately guess just about everything else they think. At least politically. So, I will be talking about what is. I don't have a position on what should be. Now, things that directly affect me in my life, obviously, I'm going to care about and I'm going to have a position on. But in these more abstract, let's just kind of figure out what is, and I'll leave it to other people to figure out what should be. Now, with Karl Marx is an interesting character, and if you've basically read biographies, he was essentially a couch surfing loser, to be blunt about it. He's a person who you could say never worked an honest day in his life. He survived on the charity. Well, it's not so much charity if you're an expert at extracting funds from family, friends, colleagues, and political admirers, I guess you could say. I have an opinion about Marx that's going to be fairly unique. I think he obviously has a big problem with capitalism and the bourgeoisie. But I think he's suffering from a great deal of resentment of existence because he didn't like himself very much, because he never actually made it to being an adult, or in the more parlance of the time, he never became a man. He never accepted responsibility. He never had to physically struggle in order to survive anything. Uh, and when you find yourself in possession of that which you did not earn, it eats at you. And if you've never actually earned anything, it will really, really bother you. And I believe that he blames the capitalism for the abundance that helped him survive without having to accept responsibility and grow up. In other words, if he was denied the opportunity to hit some kind of low or rock bottom that would have motivated him to make the changes to become the kind of person he could have respected. But because of the abundance due to capitalism that he was able to extract from lots of different people, he never had to, and he resented the person he was, and he essentially blamed, capitalism. And in his resentment, he basically created a technology that people could use to harness the jealousy of the less successful, to turn them against the more successful, and allow a small group of people to seize power, which would, in his mind, it would be, overthrowing capitalism, but it's very much like a malicious code. Marxism is very much like a virus, or the first incarnation of a virus that has mutated many, many times and is adaptable to many different situations. And that was his gift to the world. Now, I thought there was a great deal, like it was all malevolence behind this intent to create this thing that would basically, it's sort of in a sense, people could see him as the world's first supervillain, kind of a Ted Kaczynski, except he didn't use literal bombs. He used basically a set of malicious code that is highly destructive to prosperous, merit-based, capitalist societies. No, it wasn't capable of bringing anything new. I actually finally did it, and I listened to the Communist Manifesto today. I gotta say, I'm not really impressed. There are three parts to it. And I'd call the first part word salad and oh shoot. Why are you overheating? Okay. There goes our background. Let's see if I get something else up here. Well, I guess it's not really that necessary. But I could bring up, is it still in here? Just give me 1 second and I will, where is it? I know it's here on the desktop. Too much stuff on my desktop. Yeah, the first part was basically naive optimism in a word salad. The second part was basically responding to challenges, but also sort of confessing to those challenges in a roundabout sort of way. And the third part was basically an attack on socialism and soft communism. And maybe just because I'm used to better writers, it didn't seem very well done. Where is that goddamn image? It is so weird that I can't find this. It should be right here on the desktop. Oh, was I going to open a different thing? No, this is really bothering me that it's not here. It should be right here. Maybe I put it in the, no, it's not there. Oh, you know what I could do? I could just, I know what I'll do. No. I am just going to put thumbnail up as the background. Oh, there we go. Now at least there's something there. I wonder what happened to that thing. Yes, and that is our friend Karl Marx. I think there's sort of a nobility. Okay, typically, basically he felt that he had his potential destroyed, that the environment he was in didn't allow him to mature, and it generated a lot of self-resentment that just manifests as resentment of existence in general. But typically when people have their potential limited or even destroyed, they are compelled to act that destruction out on others almost exclusively in the same way it was done to them, which would, if that were the case, he would be a proponent of capitalism, which he is certainly not. So I think there's almost a weird nobility in that there's this thing. I mean, obviously it wasn't just capitalism that put him in that situation. If he just had a bunch of rich family, the same thing could have happened. But he latched on to capitalism as, in my opinion, as the thing that, prevented him from maturing. And he felt he needed to destroy it. And protect other people from having done to them what was done to him. But resentment of existence, like I said before, if you find yourself in possession of something you didn't earn, it will eat at you. Unless you're a sociopath, it will bother you. And that kind of self-dislike or even, self-hate, the way people typically cope with it is they will project it onto something else and then attack that thing. Or other people. If you're a religious person and you become really, really resentful after something happens in your life, there's a good chance that you would blame God or the gods. If you do not have something like that, you might blame society, or you just might blame all people. And the destruction of potential gets a bit darker, because it's something I've talked about a few times, and it is the purest manifestation of evil. Now, there can be malevolence out there where people don't care. Okay, there's a difference between stepping on somebody's face because you just don't care and it was a good place to put your foot to get where you want to go. And then there is enjoying turning your heel in somebody's eyeball. You didn't need to step on them. You wanted to, and you wanted to make them suffer as much as possible. Malevolence isn't as evil. Just wanting to harm others is not as bad as being drawn to the destruction of potential. Then the purest form of destruction of potential is, let's say, damaging a child so they'll be so broken that they will never achieve whatever potential they might have achieved. And those who this happens to are typically just compelled, as soon as they're in a position to do so, to pay it forward is probably not the right term, but it's along those lines. They call it a cycle of abuse, you know. Child gets abused, they turn into an adult, they're looking for kids to abuse. Oh, probably shouldn't tell this story, but screw it. Nobody watches these anyway. I met someone off of a dating site. And she seemed nice. Okay, first thing is, if somebody is willing to date you, or at least meet you to see if they want to date you, and they're basically sort of out of your league, you are in dangerous territory, and you need to be very, very careful, because there will be some sort of price to be paid. Now, you might fit some little like niche or fetish they might have, you know. You might just happen to look like, I don't know, their 8th grade gym teacher or something. There's a chance that you just like benefited by some random thing. But in all likelihood, you know, if you're dating somebody who's looks like they're out of your league, there will be a price to be paid for that. And so I was a little bit on alert already. But it got weird. Basically, this is a person who had the curse of being very, very pretty, very young, and I'm 100% certain that, how you say, someone or more than one person were compelled to destroy her potential. To keep it friendly, I suppose. I don't know. And okay, you know, if you're meeting someone, if you're a guy and you're meeting a woman, you want to give them whatever home field advantage they might have. Public meeting, like in this case, talked about meeting someplace, and she's like, well, I kind of want to see where you live before we meet. And I'm like, you know what? That kind of makes sense. You know, take a picture of the guy's house. If something goes sideways, you know, you send the picture to your friend. You know, I like to be conciliatory and be thoughtful of what it must be like to... Guys don't think about this, but what if basically everybody you dated was capable of kicking your ass and taking what they wanted from you? You'd have a very different idea of what dating was like. So she's like, offered to pick me up. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, you can see my place, pick me up. And just, you know, she wanted to go to the nearby park, and there were a lot of people there, so it wasn't like, you know, it was essentially a public place. And was oddly nervous, but which went away really quick, which was even more odd. I can't believe I'm telling the story. But I got the sense that there was, you know, you get a weird vibe sometimes. Like, the person's reactions don't seem to match. Like, it seemed like she wanted me to be interested in her and was showing superficial signs of being interested in me, but really wasn't. And this will happen sometimes. Like, if you've ever had a girl just randomly start talking about her boobs, like without being prompted, it's probably a bad sign. Like, it's probably not good. And I remember at one time joking, like, I'm like, okay, you know, maybe I can get her off the topic here. And it's like, I want to learn things about the person, you know? And to be honest, I was a little charmed by her presence, this beautiful face, blonde hair, and she wasn't wrong about her boobs being awesome. I'll put it that way. But at one time, I'm like, you know, if you're going to keep talking about them, I'm going to want to take a feel. And then she's like, I thought she was, you know, just challenging me, like kind of like pivoted her chest, like, oh, you're going to go for it? Like, and I like a challenge. And, you know, I went like I was going to. Of course, I stopped short, you know, because like we're in a public park. I just met the person. I don't think I'm going to be grabbing a handful of boob. And then she leaned in to close the gap where I stopped at. I'm like, oh, okay. And I don't know. Then you know, that another warning sign is that they're they start talking about, how bad their last relationship was, or how bad the guy was, and they'll sometimes imply some abuse there. And I've run into this before, where it triggers your sympathy and protective instincts. And I don't think she was like necessarily consciously trying to manipulate me. Maybe people just fall into patterns, and the patterns that they fall into are the things that have worked. Because I think I was seen as like, since I still broadcast some doormat vibes, I'm a great deal more confident, but I like to be silly and self-deprecating, and to a lot of people that seems like weakness. So I think I was sort of a mark as far as, hey, if you pay this nerd some attention, you could have him wrapped around your finger. And that's kind of seemed where things were going. But continue to talk and try to learn and stuff, and then eventually, it's like, he's like, well, I'm supposed to meet someone, in the next town over, like in like an hour. And I'm like, oh yeah, if you want to just drop me off, that's cool. Drop me off, and she got a text or something. Like, oh, well, it's as she's dropping me off, she's like, actually, I have I have some more time to kill. They're not back yet. And I'm like, hey, I have patio furniture. Or like, I wasn't about to just take her into my home. So we're sitting outside talking, more in a nice little backyard. And oh my God, I keep forgetting how this, screw it. I'm going to keep going on the story. I should probably look and see. Yeah. At this point, the signals were like, you're on the runway and the guy with the glowing orange cones is like waving you in, and it's like, yeah, this is too soon. And I've learned, like, that you do not, just for your own safety, you do not bang chicks the day you meet them. It's just a bad idea. Bad things happen. Typically, and I was kind of getting that sense, and it was part of why I didn't want to go inside, but I was like, I'm going to sit outside for like a half hour, and she's like, oh, I want to see your studio you were talking about. And I'm like, oh. And she also knew that, we were talking on the phone. She also knew that was in my bedroom. Like, oh, that's not good. It's like, well, I'm like, I don't think so. I think if we end up going inside, we're gonna end up having sex, and that's a bad idea. And she's like, oh, you're probably right. And like 5 minutes later, so can I see your studio? And it's like, I felt like she was two people. She was negotiating her, well, how do you say that? Feminine wilds for something that could be extracted from me later. Because, nerds are easy to play, or at least if if you think someone's a nerd. Not that I think I am, but I think she thought I was different than I was, and I would be easy to manipulate. But it ended up showing her, my 3-screen, actually my 4-screen setup, and the mic and camera and stuff. And she basically was inviting me to make a pass at her, like very like, oh, did I just bend over the edge of the bed and look over my shoulder coyly, like like literally, like. And at this point, I'm like, okay, something's wrong here. I'm not going for this. And at some, and I forget the exact details, but like became more overt. And it's like and I told her, I'm getting confused here, because you're giving me the signals that you like want to hook up, but I can tell you're not actually into me. And it's like, took her back for a second. She's like, okay, how can you tell? I'm like, there are signs, I'm a big part of my interest in someone is their interest in me. And I can tell when someone isn't really into me. Funny thing is, we ended up having a nice conversation after that. But, like, she was clearly willing, she was basically offering her body to me, even though she didn't want me, because I would guess either this was a self-esteem thing, or revenge against who she, she was probably actually with somebody and was pretending she wasn't with somebody. So maybe revenge against that person. Um, Maybe she thought she could extract some stuff from me. But like at some point, she was treated like such a commodity by somebody that she just didn't see her own worth. Like the idea of like having sex with someone you really weren't into was just somehow normalized for her. It just made me so sad because she was, so pretty, and so hot. But it's like that's not enough. I mean, I don't want to just possess somebody else's body for a short period of time, even if they give me the full go ahead. That's icky. But her potential to develop, and there was one thing she talked about that, girls trying to get you worked up. Well, it's amazing how often they'll bring up that they're actually into girls. And it's like, oh, okay, you can talk about that for a little while. I'll listen. And said, but she has to be prettier than me. That has to be it. And it's like, she's already really pretty. And she told a couple stories, like her and her ex, like would, sometimes get an escort, which is, just code. But apparently she gets a little aggressive with the women to the point of almost like injuring them in a somewhat sexual way, if I can get away with saying that. And when you put that together with she has to be prettier than me, and then she's drawn to like basically injuring the prettier woman, it's like she's just revisiting the destruction of her potential on somebody else and has no idea that she's compelled to do so. And and that's why I say the destruction of potential is the ultimate form of evil. And if someone is drawn to that, and this is why everybody has a reaction about, going after the kids. A lot of movies where the hitman will say, I don't do kids. You'd be like the slimiest guy, watch him just execute people like cold without any thought. It's like, yeah, I don't do kids. And I think that is why there's this really strong pushback against the transitioning of children, because there is a perception, and I'm not making moral judgment here, but it seems that it could be easily construed as, if you want to destroy the potential of a child, which is basically doing something that keeps them from developing properly, that is evil, by the way I define it. If you're drawn to the destruction of potential of children, you're evil. And I know I'm making a moral judgment here, but I'm not making it specific to any action. I'm just saying destruction of potential is the ultimate form of evil that people are capable of. Even worse than just malevolence. Even worse than, and that's worse than apathy. And to bring it back to, Karl Marx, he didn't seem to want to revisit the destruction of his potential on others. It kind of seems like he was trying to destroy the system that destroyed his potential, which in the weirdest way grants him a sort of nobility. This has been Grinding Meaning number 43, Resentment of Existence and Destruction of Potential. You all have a great day.